Surprise, surprise, Graham Platner is officially out. Plus, we're going to update you on the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing and the sudden death of Lindsey Graham. All that and more right now. Welcome to episode 72 of the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike, and today is July 12th, 2026. Please hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss our next episode on Thursday. Well, Matt, it took a little longer than we thought it would, but here we are. Graham Platner, the progressive populist Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate race in Maine, has formally withdrawn his candidacy. The collapse of his campaign happened pretty quick following a series of personal and political controversies. Of course, the final and most recent blow to Platner's campaign came on Monday, July 6th, when Politico published an on-the-record allegation of sexual assault made by one of his ex-girlfriends regarding an incident from nearly 5 years ago. As we mentioned in the last episode, Platner denied the allegation and called it categorically false, which in my opinion is never a good sign when those words are said. Platner's high-profile allies dropped him faster than the liberals running to defend illegal immigrants. They rescinded their endorsements and called on him to step down, including Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Ro Khanna of California, the Maine Democratic Party, and the Senate Democrats' campaign arm, and Planned Parenthood Action Fund. Furthermore, party leadership informed Platner that they would completely withhold financial resources if he chose to stay in the race. Now, just for fun here, let's take a trip down memory lane. Here are the reasons that did not get Platner outcasted by his fellow Democrats. Now, we have to start with the tattoo. It was previously revealed that Platner had a chest tattoo of a Totenkopf, which is a skull and crossbones symbol used by a Nazi paramilitary unit. Platner stated he was unaware of its historical meaning when he got it while serving in the military in Croatia, and he has since had it covered up.
He had it for 20 years before he covered it up, though.
Yeah, so he obviously didn't get it covered up until he knew it would become an issue when he was running for government. Then there were the Reddit posts. Uncovered Reddit posts from 2013 to 2021. Again, 2013 to 2021. Showed Platner calling himself a communist, writing that all cops are bastards, and making crude remarks about rural white Americans. He apologized for the post, attributing them to a personal low point, which I would argue has been most of his life.
Don't forget about the raping home intruders in a non-homosexual way.
Yeah. And we'll count it as one incident, but it's really several incidents. Multiple reports from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal highlighted a volatile history with women, including explicit texting with other women during his marriage and complaints of troubling behavior from past girlfriends. Platner blamed his past behavior on untreated PTSD instead of actually taking responsibility. So, just to be clear, all these things were not bad enough for him to lose his endorsement. You even had the ladies on The View saying that he was a terrible person, but they would still vote for him. But the final nail in the coffin was a rape allegation. None of the other red flags meant anything. On Wednesday night, July 8th, Platner released an 11-minute video on X announcing the suspension of his campaign. He remained defiant, emphasizing that his departure was most certainly not an admission of guilt. Instead, he targeted the political establishment and the donor class, claiming they exerted structural pressure to crush his populist movement, once again avoiding any and all personal responsibility. That seems to be the theme with Graham. On Friday, July 10th, he officially submitted his formal withdrawal paperwork to the Maine Secretary of State's office.
The hatred of Donald Trump has led many on the left to abandon all morals and ethics. Fighting Trump and winning the seat was more important. I would bet the only reason they even decided to abandon him now is because they saw the poll numbers and it was clear he wasn't going to win. Collins has a long history of performing better in elections than the polls say she will, and she was ahead by a significant margin before Platner dropped out. The video Platner posted was just bizarre to me. He claims to be fighting the establishment of his own party, and he took no responsibility for all of this happening. It blows my mind he couldn't look at this situation and realize his past was going to be a problem, He is right when he says this is not an admission of guilt. But when you have this many allegations of varying types, some of them are probably true. I did find it funny that Platner tried to name his own replacement, and the person he picked also had issues. He had been accused of assault as well, so just a guess, but Graham Platner probably wasn't the best judge of character. And if you were a Democrat in Maine, would you want the endorsement or to be picked by the Nazi? That doesn't sound like a great endorsement to me.
Yeah, I don't know that I would want him to be the one choosing me to move forward. But what's that saying that if you hang around four broke people, you'll be the fifth? So it sounds like Graham is hanging around a bunch of people who have issues with sexual assault. So anyway, because Platner met the statutory deadline to officially withdraw before 5 p.m. on the second Monday in July 13th, his name will not appear on the November general election ballot. The Maine Democratic Party now faces an emergency window to find a replacement candidate to challenge Republican incumbent Senator Susan Collins. More than 100 state Democratic committee members voted to hold a special nominating convention to select the new nominee. Platner publicly demanded that this process be transparent and reflective of the populist voters who supported him rather than decided by backrooms in Washington, D.C. The party must officially name its replacement candidate by July 27th at 5 p.m. Is this not another example of Democrats handpicking a candidate that received 0 votes? This is Kamala Harris all over again, just on a smaller scale.
I was just about to say that. The party trying to save democracy from the big bad orange man seems to have forgotten to give the people the choice of who their politicians are. As I said earlier, the only thing the Democratic establishment cares about is getting the seats to fight Trump. The moment they saw Biden couldn't win, they got rid of him. And it's the exact same thing here. Platner couldn't win, so let's move to the next candidate that potentially can. I do wonder who is the next candidate for this seat. And is Susan Collins going to use the fact that they didn't get any votes against them? I certainly hope so. I'm not a big fan of Susan Collins, but better her than the socialist Democrats that keep getting these seats, right?
Yeah, if I was her, I would for sure bring it up. I mean, that would probably be the biggest thing that I would bring up. Hey, this person got 0 votes. And here they are, once again, just like Kamala Harris. Joe Biden wasn't fit to run. Now Graham Platner's not fit to run. And they just insert whoever they want into the seat, even though that person got no votes.
Yeah, and if I was Collins, I would also point out the fact that their candidates are cut from the same New York City Zohran Mamdani cloth of socialism.
Yep, absolutely.
Ask your voters if they want Maine to look like New York City. I'm going to guess the answer for most is no.
Yep. All right, well, let's move on to our next topic. We promised an update on the preliminary hearing for Tyler Robinson. That hearing officially wrapped up on Friday, July 10th. However, a final decision on whether the case will officially proceed to trial has been deferred until September. Over the 5-day hearing in Provo, Utah, prosecutors laid out extensive evidence, including DNA analysis linking Robinson to the rifle, a recorded video interview with his former roommate, text messages, and a confession note where Robinson allegedly stated that he took the opportunity to, quote, take out Charlie Kirk. Robinson's defense team, led by attorney Michael Burt, rested after calling an ATF forensic biologist to the stand. They focused heavily on trying to chip away at the state's DNA evidence, arguing that forensic testing cannot be classified as infallible or carrying a 0 error rate. Robinson himself chose not to testify. The final day included an emotional moment for the Kirk family as the court played enhanced campus surveillance video showing the alleged movements of the gunman on that rooftop before and after a single shot was fired into the crowd. 4th District Judge Tony Graff instituted a last-minute sanction barring media outlets from broadcasting any physical court exhibits. This came after a camera inadvertently broadcast a close-up image of Robinson's handwritten confession letter on the previous day. Instead of issuing an immediate ruling on probable cause, Judge Graff granted a defense motion to allow both sides to submit written closing arguments first. Now, The deadline for the prosecution to submit its summary brief is July 28th. August 11th is then the deadline for the defense's reply brief. And then on August 18th, that is the deadline for the state's final rebuttal. Both sides will return to court on September 1st, 2026 for a final 4-hour block of oral arguments, after which Judge Graff is expected to officially decide if the case goes to trial. If the judge finds sufficient probable cause, the case will advance to trial, where prosecutors have already indicated that they intend to pursue the death penalty. Now, here's my opinion on this. This is absolutely ridiculous. Listen, I don't like what the judge is doing here, but I get it. I understand it. This preliminary hearing is 100% open and shut. Was there evidence that would make someone believe that Tyler Robinson could have committed this crime? The answer to that question is yes. Overwhelmingly, yes. In other words, see you at trial, Mr. Robinson. Unfortunately, the judge wants to make sure the defense can't appeal this later or have a case in which he wasn't given a fair shake. So again, I get it, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Instead, we have to wait even longer to get to the end of this thing.
I really don't have a problem with what the judge is doing here. Every time we have a high-profile case, we see appeal after appeal, and the case just drags on for years. The judge is trying to prevent that, and that means the original trial will take longer. If the case is solid and done the right way, I'm good with it, but that remains to be seen. Time will tell how this goes and whether or not this was a good job by the judge.
Now, let me ask you this, Matt. Do you want to see Tyler Robinson get the death penalty in this case?
Well, if he is actually found guilty of the murder, and it was premeditated and it was an act of political violence, which we think it was, if that is the case, the death penalty should be the outcome. If it is proven that he intentionally killed Charlie Kirk, that should be the outcome. It should be the death penalty. Intentionally murdering someone because they have different opinions than you, even when they were willing to talk to you and hear your position and give you a chance to explain why your position is right, is grounds for the death penalty. He absolutely deserves a fair trial, but if he's found guilty, it should be on the table.
Yeah, I do want them to pursue capital punishment. Now, whether or not he'll actually get it, I don't know, which that's going to lead me into my next question. But before we get there, I wish that they would let me in a room with Tyler Robinson for 30 minutes or even an hour, just so I could sit down in front of him and say, hey, explain to me why you hate Charlie Kirk, so that I can sit here for the next hour and explain to you why you're wrong. All the reasons that this guy thinks that Charlie Kirk was a bad person are all BS reasons. They can all easily be explained. This guy was shown clips that were out of context, and that's what made him think that Charlie Kirk was a bad person. But if somebody would just sit down in front of this kid for 20 minutes and show him all the reasons why he's wrong, I bet he would feel some serious remorse for what he did.
Well, you have to keep in mind that the normal Democratic playbook is to shout Nazi or racist or anything like that, and then turn around and run away. There's a long history of people on the far left not willing to debate their ideas because most of their positions are indefensible. They try to silence you politically, and if that doesn't work, they will resort to bullets.
Yeah, it's amazing how we can shout fascist and call people Hitler and say all these things and think that, is it crazy that one person might hear that and be like, oh, well, I have a gun and I can do something about it?
Yeah, I've said it all the time. If you equate them to Hitler, people get the idea that it would be a good thing for humanity if you take them out. But isn't it ironic that we just talked about the guy with the Nazi tattoo that they said to still vote for?
Yeah, crazy that guy's okay, still okay to vote for him, but we have to actually kill the guy that someone just said is a fascist or someone just said is a Nazi. That's the most insane thing to me.
I said in the last episode that they live in an echo chamber of their own ideas. In today's day and age, it is not difficult to Google someone or search them on YouTube and see their actual opinions on something. And don't watch the short. Don't take the 30 or 60-second clip. Watch the full 5 or 10 or 20-minute video and hear them articulate their opinion.
Yeah. If you want to actually see what someone said, do not watch a short or a video from someone that you regularly follow. If you want to see a clip from Charlie Kirk, you heard someone say that Charlie Kirk is a racist, and you heard someone say that Charlie Kirk wonders if black people deserve to be the pilot of an airplane when he gets on an airplane. If you're questioning that, what you need to do is you need to Google Will Witt and Charlie Kirk black pilot and see the context of what Charlie Kirk actually said. Listen to someone like Will Witt actually explain the context behind what Charlie Kirk was saying. Or better yet, type it into AI, type it into ChatGPT, type it into Gemini, type it into something and say, hey, Charlie Kirk said this. What was the context of what was said? And let AI explain to you everything else that he said so that you can understand that he wasn't just trying to be mean or an a-hole or he wasn't trying to be racist. There was context behind what was said.
You know, the best part of this, though, they did a study of white people to see how different white people would react around people of color. And they found that Republicans acted the same, but liberals would dumb down the language they were using when they were speaking to minorities. Liberals thought less of the colored people than Republicans. We treat everybody as an individual. That's how it should be. Martin Luther King said to judge people not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. We need to find a way to get back to that. We've never been perfect at it, but we are drifting further and further away. In particular, the people on the left, because they want them to stay in one box and have the entire box vote Democrat.
Yeah, I for sure don't care where you come from, don't care who you're related to, whatever. I will not judge you in a negative light until you give me a reason. Now, we got a little sidetracked, so I do want them to pursue capital punishment for Tyler Robinson. Whether or not he'll actually get it, I don't know. But like I said, that kind of leads me to the next question. Should he take a deal if they offer it? Or do you think his defense team is going to be begging the prosecution for a deal before the end of this trial? Now, I think that may be the only thing that keeps the needle out of this kid's arm.
I have heard legal experts say all the tactics the defense team is using may be an attempt to get a deal done. Some think the defense is trying to make this as hard as possible and drag it out for as long as possible, with the hopes a life sentence or less is the deal offered. Robinson's attorneys will know the facts and understand what his odds are of being found guilty. From where we sit, it doesn't look great for him. I think, unless his defense team knows something we don't, which is entirely possible, he would probably be wise to take a deal.
Yeah, it's fitting that this is going to go into September. I will say September is when the whole thing happened, so it is kind of fitting that he's going to find out in September whether or not he's going to go to trial. But then who knows how much longer it's going to be until it actually goes to trial. But this whole podcast started because of this thing with Charlie Kirk, because of the assassination attempt on Charlie Kirk's life. That's how this whole thing started. That's where the whole idea came from. And hopefully we will see justice is served. I truly hope that justice is served. Like I said, I don't know exactly what that looks like. Part of me wants him to get the death penalty and have that needle shoved in his arm. But the other part of me, truthfully, I don't know if he deserves to get off that easy. I feel like that's getting off easy, to be honest, because
you would rather pay the money to have him sitting in a prison for 30 or 40 or 50 years?
Yeah. I feel like if I was, I feel like, to be honest, like if that was you, like if you were sitting on the campus and it was you that was sitting there and you got shot like that, I don't know that I would want your assassin to be put to death and their misery just ended like that. I feel like I would rather them sit in prison for the rest of their miserable life. I don't know which one is truly, truly worse. And I feel like the only way to really know is to ask Tyler Robinson, which one is he more afraid of? And whichever one he's more afraid of, that's the punishment I hope he gets.
Not the most exciting topic. Certainly a sad note to that one, and the next one isn't going to be much better. One of the most influential figures in Republican politics has passed away. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham has died at the age of 71, following what his office described as a brief and sudden illness. His family has asked for privacy, and while additional details have not yet been released, the news has prompted an outpouring of tributes from political leaders across the U.S., and some from around the world. Graham served in the U.S. Senate for more than 2 decades after first being elected in 2002, following the retirement of Senator Strom Thurmond. Before that, he served 4 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives and spent years in the Air Force, Judge Advocate General's Corps, eventually retiring from military service as a colonel. During his Senate career, he became one of the most recognizable voices on national security and foreign policy, consistently advocating for a strong U.S. military, robust support for allies, and a confrontational stance towards adversaries such as Russia and Iran. Politically, Lindsey Graham's career was marked by a remarkable evolution at the end. He was once one of Donald Trump's sharpest Republican critics during the 2016 presidential campaign, but after Trump took office, the two developed a close political alliance. Graham became one of the president's most reliable allies in Congress, playing a major role in confirming conservative federal judges and Supreme Court justices while serving in key leadership positions on the Senate Judiciary and Budget committees. His death also has an immediate political consequence. Under South Carolina law, Governor Henry McMaster will appoint someone to temporarily fill the Senate seat until a special election can determine who will serve the remainder of the term. With the 2026 election already underway, state Republican leaders will now have to navigate an unexpected transition in one of the country's highest-profile Senate seats. Whether you agreed with Lindsey Graham or not, there's little question that he left a significant mark on American politics. Over 3 decades in Congress, he was a central figure in debates over war, judicial appointments, immigration, and national security. As a South Carolina resident, I didn't agree with everything he said, but I would have voted for him again. He did a fairly good job at representing the things I wanted.
Yeah, he was kind of out there on some things, but I agree with you there. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I would have voted for him again. Now, the medical examiner confirmed that his cause of death was an aortic rupture, which is a tear in the main artery from the heart due to a cardiovascular disease. However, because it happened so suddenly, different political factions are bringing out all the conspiracy theories. Promoted aggressively by online right-wing influencers like Laura Loomer, there's a theory claiming that Graham was poisoned by foreign adversaries. Proponents of this theory point to the timing. Graham had just been in Kiev meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, his 10th trip there since 2022. On Friday, he announced he had secured Donald Trump's green light on a massive new package of tough Russia sanctions. Concurrently, Graham was a massive proponent of aggressive military action against Iran, pushing for their regime change. Conspiracy theorists claim either Moscow or Tehran assassinated him to stop the sanctions package or retaliate for his hawkish Middle East stances. The chatter grew loud enough that the FBI announced that it would look into the circumstances surrounding his death. Now, I think that those claims are completely unfounded, but what's even crazier is the quote-unquote Mossad did it counter theory. Alexander Dugin floated the idea that Israel's intelligence agency Mossad is the one who orchestrated the death. The twisted logic here claims that by killing a hyper-hawkish U.S. senator and making it look like an Iranian hit, Israel could successfully force the Trump administration to completely abandon any current ceasefire negotiations and launch a full-scale war against Iran.
The upside for Israel in that scenario is they potentially get the regime change in Iran they want. The downside is that we find out it was Israel and then we abandon Israel. The pros and the cons would tell you it's not worth it, and the Israeli intelligence agencies probably have thought of this, but they would know better than to actually try it.
Yeah, you would think that Israel would be smart enough to know.
Israel is a country that is great at looking far into the future. A lot of bad things have happened to Jews, and as a people, they look to ensure the survival of the Jewish people long into the future, hundreds of years. They would know doing something that risks America being on their side is not a good idea. Life would be way more difficult in the Middle East if they didn't have our backing.
Yeah, they would for sure think that if they got caught.
Yeah. The downsides heavily outweigh the upside.
Yeah, there would be 0 point to it. That's why I don't believe in it at all. Israel is an ally of ours, and for them to actually take out Lindsey Graham and try to play it off as an Iranian hit would just be stupid.
And Lindsey Graham almost certainly was not poisoned while he was in Ukraine. Ukraine's defense is very good at this point, and Lindsey Graham would not have been anywhere near the front lines or near Russians. So that would mean that it happened at home. Do you think that happened? We should absolutely look into it. But I would put my money on him having a medical issue and not some big conspiracy theory. He was 71 years old. I hate to say it, but...
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. He was 71 years old. Now, Dugin called it a, quote, black mark sent to Trump, end quote, to signal that he is next if he doesn't comply. Despite the intense online speculation and the geopolitical finger-pointing, medical officials maintain there is no evidence of foul play. Again, Graham was 71 years old, and he had just completed an exhausting long-distance trip to a war zone. Trump himself noted that when he spoke to Graham hours before his passing, the senator mentioned being incredibly tired from the grueling travel. An aortic rupture is a devastating, sudden medical emergency that aligns perfectly with the brief illness and the rapid passing his office initially reported. What I also find funny is the Iranian government telling all of its citizens that they are the ones who are responsible for Lindsey Graham's death. There's a lot of new attacks going on with Iran and the U.S., and we're going to get into that in the next episode, but there is 0 chance that Iran did this. If they did this, all of their leaders would already be dead.
Yeah, no chance it was Iran. They'll take anything they can for propaganda value within their own country, though. I just find it really funny that you have all these people out here who think a country of 8.5 or so million people in a small part of the Middle East is somehow the ones calling the shots over a country on the other side of the world with 340 million people in it. It blows my mind that people think the power dynamic between the two is somewhat close and the country of 8 million is telling the big boy what to do. Now, as we come to the end of the show, it's time for the blind ranking segment. In honor of Lindsey Graham, I decided the topic today would be senators you feel best represent you. I will give you one hint. Lindsey Graham is not on the list, and they are all active senators right now.
All right.
The first name up, Lindsey's Senate colleague in South Carolina, Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. Okay. I like Tim Scott.
I like him too. I think he's better than Lindsey Graham.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. You know what? I think I'm going to do something that has never been done on this podcast before.
Are you going number one?
I am going to put Tim Scott at number one.
Number one. Off the bat. Wow.
Off the bat. Number one. First time in the Republic Brothers podcast history.
Probably.
Someone has been placed at number one right off the bat.
The next one up for you. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. One of the few Democrats with common sense.
Yeah, that is tough because I like John Fetterman. The question is, how many bad names are you going to give me? At this point, John Fetterman is either number 2 or number 3. It's just a question of whether you're going to give me someone that deserves that number 2 spot.
Tough choice.
I'm going to put John Fetterman at number 3.
Number 3, okay.
Yeah.
Next up, Donald Trump's favorite Indian woman, Elizabeth Warren.
Ugh.
Pocahontas.
Ugh. Yeah, she can go number 5.
Number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Number
5.
The next name might make you regret that. Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. Okay. That's who I figured was coming next. All right, I'm going to put Bernie Sanders at number 4. Honestly, though, and don't hate me for this take, but I understand Bernie Sanders' whole platform, right? Like, I get it. Like, I understand why he appeals to so many people. And while he does say some dumb stuff, I don't think he's a dumb human. I do think that Elizabeth Warren is a dumb human.
It's great for Bernie, though, because as a socialist, he just gets to sit there and shout about all the problems. He never actually has to fix them.
Exactly. Yep. So, yeah, I actually don't hate that. I'm okay with Bernie being at 4 and Elizabeth Warren being at 5.
That brings us to the last name. You have number 2 open only, and I think you'll be happy because it's Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Yep. Nailed it. I like that. Maybe I would flip Ted Cruz and Tim Scott, but I'm okay with the list as is 100%. I think I nailed it.
I would have had Bernie at 5, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a toss-up with Elizabeth Warren. If me personally, I would, like, if you said, okay, you have to vote on one of these 2 people, and you can either vote on Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, if I had to give my vote to one of them, I'd probably give my vote to Bernie Sanders, to be honest.
I think of it from an economic policy perspective. If you're voting for one of them, do you want the woman who doesn't understand economics, who thinks she does, or do you want the raging socialist who vacationed in the former Soviet Union?
Yeah, I don't expect either one of them to actually get anything done.
It's
so...
dummy or socialist who's not completely stupid.
Yeah, true.
But overall, I think you did well there.
Yeah, pretty good. I think that was a great call with Tim Scott going number 1. First name off the board going number 1. That was a bold move.
Yeah, you went Tim Scott number 1, Ted Cruz number 2, John Fetterman 3, Bernie Sanders 4, and Elizabeth Warren 5.
Yeah, not bad. All right, well, that is it for episode 72 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe or follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.